Welcome to Bigger Than You, the podcast to help you go from overwhelm, self-doubt and scarcity in your business to the calm, grounded and unshakably confident version of you that's going to bring your vision to life. You've got a mission and a purpose that's bigger than you and your limiting stories and beliefs. So let's get you out of your own way. I'm Jenna Holloway, your host and multi-award-winning intuitive hypnotherapist and mindset coach. Expect to hear game-changing perspective shifts on how to align your subconscious mind with your boldest goals, and will unlock the power of energetics, infusing it into every aspect of your life and business for maximum impact. Are you ready? Then let's dive in. Welcome, Nicola. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again. I'm really excited. We have a guest on the show, and Nicola, my guest today, I don't think we actually properly met in person. We were at a networking event together and we connected, but there were so many people at the event that we didn't actually meet face to face. So I am super excited to have this conversation with Nicola and to share her with you. Welcome, Nicola.
Oh, thanks, Jenna. I'm really excited to be here. And no, we didn't get to meet in person, but I love that connections can still be made through events, even if you don't actually get to meet the person in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just introduce who Nicola is and what she does, and we'll go from there. So Nicola Humber is a transformational writing mentor. She's the author of 3 transformational books. They are called Heal Your Inner Good Girl, Unbound, and Unbound Writing. She's also the creator of #Unbound365 Journal and the founder of the Unbound Press, a soul-led publishing imprint for unbound women. And Nicola helps women to write the book their unbound self is calling them to write, whilst growing a community of soul-led family readers and clients. And she's also the host of the Unbound Writers Club. Amazing. I'm so excited for this conversation. But Nicola, first of all, please could you share with us, like, I think it's fairly intuitive, but just in case it's not, can you explain what you mean by the unbound woman?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as you were reading that bio, like the introduction, I was like, how many times have I mentioned Unbound there?
But it's like, clearly
so, like getting in there. But yeah, for me, it's all about like being your fullest, freest self. And actually, I came to the word unbound when quite a few years ago now, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, when I was going through Danielle Laporte's core desired feelings process, which is where you tune into like how you want to feel and come up with your core desired feelings. And one of mine was freedom, but that just didn't, it just felt a bit kind of vague and general. I was like, no, that's not quite doing it. So, you know, as an author, I'm a bit of a wordy. So I went to the dictionary and the thesaurus and I was looking for words that mean like something similar to freedom. And as soon as I saw the word unbound, like I could just feel it in my body. I was like, yes, that's it. And for me, it is that sense of freedom, but there's the suggestion in the word that something has previously been held back and bound, which to me is really important, like that sense of release, kind of being unleashed. Yeah, so that's what the unbound woman is, somebody who has experienced, which I feel like we all have, like growing up in this world, like some kind of like limitation, like holding back, and we're going through this process of like unbinding from all the shoulds and the expectations to be our fullest,
100%. It's like unlearning all of that conditioning that we experience growing up. You literally can't escape it, can you? And then becoming unbound is about learning who you truly are as you shed those layers of things that have been put upon you as you grow up. And I see your background. Well, I can see it in the bio, but I'd love for you to share, like, how did you come to this point? Like, where was your starting point in life, and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, because I'd always followed, like my first book was called Heal Your Inner Good Girl, and that was such a person, well, all of the books were personal, but that one, you know, was really telling the story or sharing my experiences of following what I would call like the good girl path for a big part of my life up until like my mid to late 30s, like doing well at school. I did a degree in business because like I was told that was the most sensible thing to do, and then went into a career in finance. So I worked in finance up until my mid 30s, and it kind of really fulfilled the needs of my inner good girl, because it was a proper job. Everyone understood it. You know, I was financially secure. I was able to buy my own property. Like, you know, it ticked all of the boxes for my inner good girl. But, you know, what I now know to be my unbound self just couldn't deal with that, you know, for a sustained period of time. And I always had this sense that I wanted to do something else, but I had no idea what it was. And it was only when things kind of got so unbearable, like in the 9 to 5, working in that corporate environment, that I made a completely intuitive decision to retrain as a coach and a hypnotherapist. And that started me on the path that I'm on now. And initially I thought, oh, I'll just set up a hypnotherapy practice and that'll be me, like seeing clients in person. I had no idea where it would lead me. And that was, 13, 14 years ago. And it's led to what I'm doing now, writing books and helping other women to do that.
Has it just been your intuition that has led you from, well, leaving the corporate finance job to where you are today?
Yeah, it is. And that's been a process. I mean, I say it was an intuitive decision. It was an intuitive decision to decide to retrain specifically as a hypnotherapist and a coach. But I wouldn't have identified that. I just knew that it felt right. And I think I was only able to make that decision because things had got so uncomfortable, like going into an office every day, doing work that I really didn't love, that I was like continually looking out for any kind of sign of what I was meant to be doing. And I ended up going to a health spa for the weekend with my sister and saw this hypnotherapy demonstration by this woman. Like, she was an older woman, she was completely eccentric, but there was something about it that I was just like, that's what I'm meant to do. So it was definitely like an intuitive hit. But like I said, I was only able to do that at the time because I was like, it was so uncomfortable in my present situation. And along the way, what I've kind of learned to do is follow my intuition and those downloads and those hits that I get without things having to be without things having to get so intensely uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really resonate with the fact that you were led to the decision without really realizing it was intuition. That's completely how I found hypnotherapy too. I wasn't at like the same kind of uncomfortable place. I've just had my girls and gone back after maternity leave, and it just felt wrong. Like I knew that there was something else. I just felt this pull, and that's what led me to train as a hypnotherapist too. So, but exactly like you say, I didn't have the vocab back then to know it was intuition. It was a pull, and that's just hard to describe other than that.
Yeah.
I'd love to know then, how did you get from hypnotherapy to writing your first book and where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I always loved writing and books when I was a little girl. Like, I always had my nose in a book. Love writing stories. I wrote my first book actually when I was about 7 years old. It was a story called The Wise Owl, and one of my teachers at the time, the amazing Mrs. Baker, she like typed it up for me like on this manual typewriter and printed it out, and we made this book. I did the illustrations. I've still got it. So I loved all of that stuff when I was little, but then I kind of drifted away from it because I received all of these messages that, oh no, you need to kind of do something more academic, like you need to get a good job, and like writing, that just doesn't make sense. You can't make money doing writing. So drifted away from it for a long time. And it's when I started my hypnotherapy practice, I set up my first website, and pretty much straight away I started blogging because there was obviously a part of me that remembered that I loved writing. And at first that blog, oh my goodness, it was so dry and professional and not focused on me at all. Like, I wasn't sharing anything of myself or anything of my own story or experience, which kind of, as a therapist, because I trained in counseling as well, like that's what you're trained to do. It's like, it's not about you, it's about holding space for the client. So it was very dry, but gradually I started to bring more of myself in. And I always thought, oh, like it would be amazing to write a book. But it's about 5 years into my business, and I'd been doing some work online as well. But I got to a point where I wasn't really sure how to move forwards. And I was just feeling really lost in my business. Like everything had ground to a halt. It's like, what is going on? And someone I know on Facebook had put a post up offering angel card readings. And I'd never had like anything like that before. But I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm just gonna go for one. So I did. And as soon as she tuned in, the first message that came through was like, have you written your book yet? You need to write your book. Like, that's what you need to do. And I don't know why I couldn't have made that decision for myself, but that kind of external like affirmation, I was just like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Exactly. I needed that. And actually that's what I hear from a lot of women. They like receive some kind of like external guidance, like for a reading or like a dream or whatever it is. And that kind of gives them that kind of nudge to actually commit to the process. And that's what I did. I said, yeah, I'm doing it. I had no real idea what the book would be about. And then 2 days later, I was out for a walk and the title just dropped in, Heal, You're in a Good Girl. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Like, I can write about that. So yeah, that's how that started.
And writing it, did it feel like you were just channeling it and downloading it all?
Yeah, it did. It did. Not so much with the first book. Like, obviously the title was, it kind of just like dropped in seemingly out of nowhere. But because I'd never written a book before, I was like looking for a lot, looking out there at the advice on writing a book. And a lot of it was quite like heady. It's like you've got to have it planned out, and you've got to know what the book's going to be and what all your chapters are. So I was a bit, with that first book, a little bit half in when it comes to like just allowing it to come through. And part of me, probably the good girl part, was like, no, you need to kind of like stay on track and know exactly what you're writing about. So I would say with that book, it was a bit half and half. Whereas when I went on to the second book, that was totally letting it come through and just letting my book lead me.
Amazing. Tell us more about what it's like to write a book and was it self-published? Because you said
Yeah,
you're
Heal, You're in a Good Girl was self-published. I wanted it. It took me about kind of 9 months to get from starting it to having it out in the world, really. And that's what I wanted. I just wanted it to be out there. I was far too impatient to do anything else. And yeah, I mean, I managed to find an amazing editor and a designer that I knew who helped me. So that was great. And then with the second book, I worked with a hybrid publisher, which is a similar model to the Unbound Press, because I just wanted some like support. I wanted a community around me as I was publishing my book. It was quite a solitary process with Heal, You're in a Good Girl. So that was one of the learnings that I had through that first experience. It's like, no, if I'm going to do this, like I want people around me, and I want to have someone holding space and supporting me. Yeah.
And then how did you go from being an author to then have your own would you call it publishing company?
Yeah. I mean, it was never part of the plan, to be honest. You know how these things happen. And it was through the process of writing the second book, Unbound, which followed on from Heal, You're in a Good Girl. But like the idea of the unbound self came through in that first book, and pretty much straight away, like this second book's like, no, you need to write me next. So, and that was such a transformational process. And again, I was at a point in my business where it's like, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm meant to be doing. And as I was writing that second book, I was working with an amazing mentor. Like, she was deeply intuitive, and she kept saying, I keep seeing you like running workshops or working with women, helping them to write. And I was like, that's not me, because although I'd written one book and I was writing my second, I didn't really imagine I could be somebody who held space for others to write. So I was like, no, that's not me. And then my publisher, when he saw the manuscript and we met up to talk about the launch. He was like, you know, I can imagine you like having your own publishing imprint and like helping other women to write books and publish their books, and it would be called something like the Unbound Press. And as soon as he said those words, I was like, oh, again, I felt that sense of knowing in my body. I was like, that's what I'm meant to do. So, you know, I said yes. And unfortunately, like I was able to partner with Sean Patrick, who was the founder of the publishing company that I published Unbound through. So initially, like I was really finding my way, and I was able to work with their team whilst I learned the ropes, because it was all very new to me. But yeah, everything, I mean, that was the Unbound Press started, we're coming up to our 5th anniversary in November, and it's just like flourished into something I couldn't possibly have imagined. And I just, like, it really feels like my soul work, but I never would have expected it. Like I said, it was never part of the plan.
Yeah, that's amazing. It just, I can just imagine it must feel so incredible to help people go from having something inside them that, you know, they feel needs to come out to the world, but they don't know how to do it. And you guide them through that process. And then there's a physical book at the end of it that is just amazing.
Exactly. That's what I love about books, is like you get something physical at the end. Like you could say, like, I've done this. And you get to hold it in your hands, and then it goes, you know, out into the world, and it gets into the hands of people that you don't even know. It's just so magical. And for me, like, obviously the book is such an incredible outcome of the process, but it's what we experience as authors through the writing process, which is just as powerful, like who we become. And that's what I see over and over again. One of the writers I'm working with at the moment, she was like, she said, I just feel like I'm rewriting myself as I'm writing my book, and that describes it so beautifully.
Yeah, must be so empowering.
Yeah, it really is. And there's something about giving ourselves permission to actually do it and write the book, because I feel like, I know not everyone wants to write a book, but I feel like a lot of us do. A lot of us feel that call. And very often, because of the experiences we've had at school, you know, the conditioning we've picked up throughout our lives, or like in the corporate world or in academia, we've made that decision, oh, I'm not a good enough writer, you know, who am I to do this? So, you know, just giving ourselves permission to go, actually, yeah, I'm going to trust that I'm good enough, and I'm going to do this, and that I'm going to find my way. That's huge in itself.
That was literally my next question, because this is a mindset podcast. And I was going to ask you what kind of inner work did you have to do? How did you overcome those barriers that you may or may not have put in front of yourself to get to where you are today? Like full alignment, right? You're doing your soul's work.
A big piece for me, like the good enough piece, I mean, the good enough, that's always there. What helped me in terms of that, and continues to help me, is like when I recognize that's like pretty much universal. And even the most successful people, writers, we all have that good enough piece going on. But for me, the other side to that, which kind of almost felt more restrictive, was the not wanting to be too much. And that comes up a lot. It came up a lot for me, and it comes up a lot with the writers that I work with. This fear of, like, writing a book is a big thing. And the way I encourage the writers I work with to do it is, you know, to put a lot of you into your book, like not to hold back. It's your story, your experience, your voice, which is going to make it compelling and unique. But very often there's this tendency to go, oh no, I'm just going to focus on the information, you know, and it just becomes this like manual, which again, like I talked about my blog being really dry back in the day, and that's what our books can be like if we don't allow ourselves onto the pages. So that was a big process for me, like to really allow my voice to come through in a way that expressed who I was. And it's interesting that as you asked that question, Jenna, because it reminds me when I had my hypnotherapy practice, and I like generally worked with women, like I did have some male clients, but a lot were women. And a lot of them, because they were like working on themselves, like through the hypnotherapy, I quite often heard them say, oh, this feels really self-indulgent to do this. And that same piece can come up when we're thinking about writing a book. It's like, oh, you know, like, who am I to do this? This is just like really self-indulgent. No one's going to want to read my words or my story or my experience. So it's all of that stuff that, you know, I've had to move and continue to move through. Yeah, I think the too much piece comes up a lot.
Do you use any therapy still with your writing clients to help them overcome those? Because that story that's going on inside their mind, that's not them, that's the conditioning, isn't it? That's come in. That's a layer that can be removed through hypnotherapy.
Totally. I mean, I don't use hypnotherapy like directly, like in its like purest form, I would say. I have some really powerful like meditations and visualizations, which, you know, are super powerful because I bring through the hypnotherapy in those. And yeah, kind of what they activate is super, super potent. And I guess because I'm trained to work in that way, it comes through, even if I'm not using it directly, it comes through in the way I hold space and, you know, how I will work with clients, like individually or in groups. So it's not like, okay, now we're going to do a hypnotherapy session, but like once you know this stuff, it's just so natural. Yeah.
And the visualization piece is just so powerful. Like, I mean, I know you know this, but I'm speaking to the listeners. When you're visualizing yourself doing something in the future, your brain literally cannot tell the difference. So it's like you are creating this future memory that your subconscious then has, and it works towards because it thinks that it's already happened. So it sees you as a writer already having written your book. And so the subconscious just gets to work, right? That's what we're doing because we've already done it. Like it literally cannot tell the difference. So visualization is so powerful. Something that I wanted to just go back to, and I could hear it like coming in so clearly, that piece where you were saying about holding yourself back. Am I going to be too much? Who am I to write this book kind of thing? And because of who you are and what you do, the kind of people that you work with, it's the people that are soul led, they have this mission. The way, like the reframe that I put on things, if I ever get that feeling of, you know, trying to hold myself back in any way, is this is what I'm here to do. And if I hold myself back, then I'm not fulfilling my purpose, because my mission is to help, you know, raise the collective consciousness, change other soul-led business owners' lives so they stop holding themselves back. And the same for you. Like their reframe is, no, get out of your own way, because this book is in, it needs to come out. So you've got to do that reframe. You've got to do that inner work so you can get out of your own way and bring it to fruition.
Totally. And it will keep coming up. Like it won't leave you alone. So you might as well just do it. Because otherwise it's just going to be there. And that question, like, who am I to do this? What we do in the Unbound writing community is actually kind of turn that on its head, that question, if that is coming up, and look at the reasons why you are absolutely like the perfect person to write. Like you're the only person who can write your book. So if you're not going to do it, you know, it's not going to happen. So it really, you need to, I mean, the only way really to move through those fears and doubts is to do it, to get into the process. And this is why I'm such a big fan of writing in community, like why community is such an important part for me in terms of the writing process and the publishing. Like for me, the Unbound Press, it's a publishing company, but that's kind of just a front, because really it's a community of women who are all allowing themselves to be their fullest, freest selves. And when we see other women who are being courageous and allowing themselves to write their books or whatever it is, you know, and put them out into the world, it kind of helps us to anchor into our own courage. So I feel that's really important to have people around you who are on a similar path, and you know, we all get to be brave together.
And thanks to the internet, like I don't know this for sure, but I reckon you probably got clients all over the world, right?
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
how does it work then? I'm so intrigued. So is it a mastermind that you have, the community of writers? Do they come to you? Like how does the process work? Do you have to have the book idea to get into the mastermind? Do you have to be accepted? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, you have to feel the call of, I mean, you're not going to come into a writing mastermind that's about writing a book. Like just I'm not sure, you know, maybe. So yeah, you have to feel that like strong call to write a book. And some people, I mean, we have some women joining who've already started the process, but you know, been finding it challenging to really commit and to gain momentum. I would say most people have at least an idea of what the book is, but we've had women in the mastermind who's, I mean, maybe they've had a sense of what the book is, and then it's transformed into something else completely in the process. So as long as there's some kind of like door to your book, that initial kind of sense, yes, I need to do this, then like the mastermind, it's not a really kind of rigid step by step, like you've got to have a clear plan at the beginning and stick to that. It's like the invitation is to say yes to your book and then see what it wants to become.
Amazing. I think before we hit record, did you say you had two masterminds?
Yeah, one's the Unbound Writing Mastermind, which is about the book writing process. And then the new one, which just started this year, is the Abundant Author Mastermind. So that's for women who've written books or are, you know, towards the end of writing their books and want their books to be the foundation for the work they're doing in the world and other offerings. Because that's what I found. We can write and publish our books, and then it's like, oh, that's done. Now what next?
Is it like the strategy piece to make that book profitable?
Yeah, it is. And also it's very similar to the way I approach the writing of the book, in that yes, there is strategy, and also we continue to allow our books to guide us, because even when they're out in the world, they kind of have this life of their own. Like this is a big part of the Unbound writing approach, is like you get to co-create with like the spirit, the essence of your book. So yeah, again, it's not it's quite a free-flowing process, because it's like an intuitive process as well. So strategy and intuition.
Amazing. And I'm also hearing, like, do you find that you help people write one book and then they stay with you and they write their second and their third? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the mastermind, the writing mastermind's been going for 5 years now, which just amazes me, because I never thought I would like have the same offering for that length of time. But one of the original members, Tara Jackson, she's written 5 or 6, I lose count, like honestly. I think it's 5 books since her first one that she wrote in that first iteration of the Unbound Writing Mastermind. And yeah, I mean, I would say usually there's not just one book. Like the first book clears the way for the next
one. It's like you're stuck in your head a little bit how it should be, and then it just flows because your subconscious like, oh, we've done this before, let's just do it again, and it's easier because you just trust yourself more.
Completely. And it's like I was talking about who you become. So you the more you write, the more you get to identify as an author, and it's just what you do. It's like, rather than thinking, is there going to be a next book, it's like, oh, I wonder what the next book's going to be. And it's this continual journey.
So what would you say to somebody who's listening? They have this feeling that they've got a book inside them, but they're not quite sure what that's going to look like or when, what would you say to them? How to go about dealing with that, like bringing that to life if you don't know yet what it is, but you just feel like there is a book inside you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say don't wait until it's clear what it is. Like, you have to say yes first. So say yes to your book and to yourself as an author, and see it as this journey of discovery. So start writing. I mean, I always find, especially early on in the process, writing by hand is most powerful. So get yourself a dedicated journal, notebook, and even if it's just a little bit every day, just come to the page, just ask the question, like, what wants to come through? And, as much as possible, don't be in a place of judgment or editing. Just really let it come. Like, say, like, this is my kind of playtime with the book. I'm just in, like I said, this process of discovery, and let it be that. At least initially, you'll start to notice different themes coming through. Or once we say yes to our books, very often things can start happening in our lives and our businesses, which are like, oh, okay, I feel like this is what I'm meant to be writing about. So, don't wait for the clarity, write for clarity. That's what I always say. Write your way into clarity.
Yeah, it's like move first and the universe will see you move and come to meet you halfway.
Totally.
Brilliant. Okay, so what's next? Would you, like, in terms of my audience has heard you and they've heard everything you said, Nicola, if they are intrigued, like they want to know more, where can they find you? Where do you want to direct them?
The best place is my website, which is nicolahumber.com. And when you head over there, you will see I offer a free book writing guide. It's like an unconventional book writing guide for kind of unbound women, magical beings, where I'm answering the top 10 questions about writing a book in a very unbound way. So yeah, you can sign up for that. And that's the best starting place, I would say.
I love that. I'm going to head straight there. Like, you wouldn't have seen this, but when I asked that previous question, I put my hand up because that's so me. Like, yeah, I'm very excited after this conversation, Nicola. Thank you so much for being here and sharing everything with the listeners. Do you feel like there's anything left to share?
The only thing I would say, and it is like, this is a massive piece, is about trust. I feel like that's come through in the whole of this conversation, but like, it's such a key piece to trust those intuitive nudges, calls, and trust yourself, like as a writer and as the creative being you are. So I see this whole process of one of like really cultivating radical self-trust. So yeah, that's the only thing I would add.
And you so clearly embodied that. Like, there's no way you'd be doing what you're doing today had you not trusted yourself to, put yourself forward and get out of your own way to, overcome those inner stories that might have been there. You did it in spite of those, and you moved, and you got the next nudge and the next nudge, and here you are today, all the way from being stuck in that finance. Like, could you imagine? I don't know how long ago it was, but when you walked out that finance job, imagine like looking forward in your life and seeing where you are today.
Like, I wouldn't have believed it. I really wouldn't. And everyone thought I was crazy at the time.
Yeah.
And now, I'm not saying it's been easy at all. There's definitely been, there's always challenges, but yeah, the rewards are like more than you could possibly imagine. So yeah.
Nothing beats fulfillment, does it? When you're doing something that you're here to do and it feels so good, it makes, like, all the challenges are so worth it. It's
totally.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your energy and just being here. It's been brilliant.
Oh, thank you. I've loved it. Thanks, Jenna.
You're welcome. See you all next week, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Bigger Than You podcast with your host, Jenna Holloway. If this episode has been valuable to you, please share it with a friend or leave a review.